We think we know the Vikings, longships, raids, warriors with axes, but there's a darker current running beneath those dragon prows. Small hands chained in shipholds, children torn from burning villages, boys and girls sold like cattle in bustling markets. Child slavery wasn't just part of Viking society. It was the engine that drove their expansion across 3 continents. Dublin's slave pens held thousands. Hedeby's markets priced children by age and skill. Archaeological evidence from mass graves to iron shackles tells a story the sagas barely whisper. How did Viking society turn children into commodities? What made a child worth more than silver? And why did this system spread from Iceland to Constantinople? If you value documented Viking and Norse-era history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from archaeological findings and medieval chronicles, including the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle and Ibn Fadlan's accounts. Now back to the story. The business starts in the 800s. Viking raids aren't random violence, they're calculated harvest operations. Children bring premium prices because they adapt faster than adults, live longer in bondage, and cost less to feed during transport. A healthy 10-year-old girl from Ireland might fetch 12 silver marks in Constantinople. That's enough to buy a ship. The strategy is surgical. Summer, 857. Ivar the Boneless hits the monastery at Clonmac Noise. His crews don't just grab gold and manuscripts. They round up every child between 5 and 15, monks, servants, local farmers, kids, anyone small enough to march without slowing the retreat. 43 children disappear that day. The Irish Chronicle of the Kings records the exact count. Transport happens fast. Viking ships carry human cargo in specialized holds below the regular deck. Archaeological work at Roskilde shows modifications, iron rings bolted to ship ribs, waste channels carved into hull planks. Children travel chained in rows, each given just enough space to lie flat. The journey from Ireland to the slave markets takes 8 days if weather holds. Dublin becomes the Atlantic's largest slave hub by 860. The city processes over 1,000 captives yearly. Children under 12 get sorted into 3 categories based on strength tests. Weakest go to local households for basic labor. Middle-tier ships to Hedeby for continental markets. Strongest and prettiest get marked for the eastern route, Novgorod, Kiev, eventually Constantinople, where Byzantine nobles pay top prices for young Norse slaves. The Dublin excavations tell the whole story. Archaeologists found iron shackles sized for children as young as 6. Waste pits contain bones showing malnutrition and growth stunting. Most telling are the ship anchor stones with tally marks, each mark representing successful human cargo delivery. One stone shows over 300 scratches. Parents can't protect their children because Viking raiders target harvest season when men work distant fields. Late summer, 861, Olaf the White sweeps the Wicklow coast. His longships arrive at dawn when fathers are inland cutting grain. Mothers and children cluster in hill forts. But these offer little defense against professional siege tactics. Olaf's crews use fire arrows and smoke to force surrender. They take 218 children in 3 days. The Annals of Ulster list every missing child by name. If you value documented Viking and Norse-era history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from archaeological findings and the Annals of Ulster. Now back to the story. The Hedeby market operates like a livestock auction. Children stand on raised platforms while buyers examine teeth, muscle tone, and reflexes. Boys who can lift 20 pounds of iron ore get marked for mining operations in the German territories. Girls who show weaving skills bring double the standard price. Children who speak multiple languages, Irish, Norse, Saxon, become interpreters and fetch premium rates. Market prices follow strict formulas. A healthy 8-year-old boy costs 6 silver marks. Same boy with a visible skill like metalwork or reading jumps to 10 marks. Girls cost more because they produce future slaves. A 12-year-old girl with clear skin and no deformities might sell for 15 marks, enough to outfit a small raiding crew. The Hedeby trading posts keep detailed records carved on bone tablets. These show seasonal price fluctuations, bulk purchase discounts, and return customer agreements. Regular buyers get coded markings that guarantee quality. Ibn Fadlan describes seeing children lined up like horses, each tagged with age, our origin, and special abilities. Eastern routes bring the highest profits. A child bought for 6 marks in Dublin might sell for 25 marks in Constantinople. The journey takes months and kills roughly 1 in 4, but survivors command extraordinary prices. Byzantine nobles compete for young northern slaves, especially children who might grow into elite guards or skilled artisans. The overland route follows the Dnieper River system. Slave traders use specialized riverboats with locked cargo holds. Children travel in chains, fed once daily on grain porridge mixed with fish scraps. Archaeological sites along the Dnieper show regular stopping points, fortified trading posts where slave caravans resupply and sort their human cargo. Kiev serves as the major processing center for Eastern trade. The city's slave quarter covers 12 acres and can hold up to 800 captives at peak season. Children get separated from adults and housed in underground chambers carved into the riverbank. These chambers, excavated in recent decades, show sleeping platforms sized for young bodies and drainage systems for human waste. The final destination is Constantinople's slave market near the Golden Horn. Here, Viking traders sell directly to Byzantine officials who staff the imperial palaces and wealthy households. Children with pale hair and blue eyes command special premiums because they're considered exotic in Mediterranean society. A single Norse child might cost a year's wages for a skilled craftsman, but not all children stay slaves forever. The smartest adapt and climb. Some learn to read Greek and Latin, becoming secretaries or translators. Others master military skills and join the Varangian Guard. A few exceptional cases rise to positions of real power, advisors to emperors, wealthy merchants, even regional governors. The system spreads because it works. By 900, Norse slave trading networks stretch from Greenland to the Black Sea. Children from Scotland get sold in Morocco. Irish kids end up as household servants in Baghdad. The profits fund new expeditions, bigger ships, and more sophisticated raiding techniques. Archaeological evidence shows the scale. Mass graves in Ireland contain hundreds of adult skeletons, but almost no children, suggesting systematic capture rather than massacre. Viking Age settlements across Scandinavia show sudden wealth increases in the mid-800s. Exactly when slave trading peaked, silver hoards buried during this period often contain Byzantine and Islamic coins, proof of Eastern trade connections. The English experience follows the same pattern. 865, the great heathen army lands in East Anglia. While chroniclers focus on battles and political alliances, the Vikings spend most of their time collecting human cargo. York, captured in 866, becomes a major slave processing center for northern England. Children from Northumbrian villages get shipped to Scandinavia or sent down continental river routes. Danish settlement areas show different slave usage patterns. Instead of immediate export, many captured children get integrated into Scandinavian society as household workers and farm laborers. These children often adopt Norse names and customs, but their legal status remains unfree. Runestones occasionally mention faithful slaves who served their masters for decades. The conversion to Christianity doesn't end child slavery, it just changes the rules. Christian Vikings can't enslave fellow Christians, but pagan children remain fair targets. This creates incentives to raid non-Christian territories and resist missionary activities in target regions. Iceland and Greenland import Irish slaves well into the 11th century. Legal codes show how deeply slavery penetrates Norse society. Norwegian laws from the 1000s specify punishments for killing someone else's slave child, procedures for slave inheritance, and rules for freeing slaves through marriage or military service. Children born to slave mothers automatically become slaves themselves unless specifically freed by the master. The archaeological record reveals everyday life for slave children. Excavations at Scandinavian farmsteads show separate sleeping areas for unfree workers, usually underground spaces or barn annexes. Slave children eat different food than free children, mostly grain porridge, with occasional scraps of meat or fish. Their bones show evidence of heavy physical labor from young ages. Some slave children fight back. The saga of Burnt and Jal mentions slave revolts, including one where captured Irish children killed their Viking masters and attempted to steal a ship back to Ireland. Most escape attempts fail because slave children don't know local geography or languages well enough to survive on their own. The decline starts in the late 1000s. Christian kingdoms develop better defenses against Viking raids. European political consolidation makes large-scale slaving expeditions more difficult. Most importantly, economic changes reduce demand for slave labor as European agriculture shifts toward tenant farming systems, but the networks persist longer than most realize. 11th century documents from Novgorod still list Norse slave traders. Archaeological evidence from Dublin shows slave market activity continuing past 1100. The last recorded sale of Irish children to Scandinavian buyers happens in 1170. Nearly a century after, most histories claim Viking slave trading ended. Training methods for slave children reveal calculated brutality. Vikings understand that broken spirits produce obedient workers. New captives get separated from siblings and placed with different masters to prevent coordinated resistance. Children who cry or refuse orders face systematic punishment, reduced food rations, isolation in storage pits, or witnessing violence against other slaves. The breaking process takes roughly 3 months. Masters assign experienced slave mentors to teach new captives basic survival rules. These mentors, often former child slaves themselves, explain which behaviors bring punishment and which might earn small privileges. Children who adapt quickly get slightly better treatment. Those who resist face escalating consequences until they submit or die. Physical conditioning starts immediately. Child slaves work dawn to dusk regardless of weather. Boys as young as 8 haul fishing nets, tend livestock, and clear forests for new settlements. Girls manage household chores, food preparation, and textile production. Archaeological analysis of child slave bones shows muscle development patterns consistent with heavy manual labor from young ages. Branding and marking practices ensure escaped slaves get returned to their owners. Some masters carve identifying marks into children's forearms or shoulders. Others use heated metal tools to burn ownership symbols into slave flesh. The most common marking involves cutting specific patterns into earlobes. Each Viking household maintains distinct ear-cutting signatures recognized across trading networks. Medical care for slave children focuses entirely on maintaining work capacity. Masters treat injuries that prevent labor but ignore pain that doesn't reduce productivity. Bone analysis from slave burial sites shows untreated fractures, dental problems, and vitamin deficiencies that would have caused constant suffering but didn't kill outright. Educational opportunities exist only when they serve master interests. Children with natural intelligence might learn basic reading to help with trade records. Others get trained in specialized crafts like metalworking or leather preparation. These educated slaves command higher resale prices, creating incentives for masters to invest in certain children while ignoring others completely. The breeding programs represent the coldest calculation. Female slaves who produce healthy children receive better food and lighter work assignments during pregnancy. Masters track breeding cycles and arrange forced mating between their strongest slaves. Children born to slave mothers legally belong to the master from birth. Lifetime bondage guaranteed through biological reproduction. Seasonal variations affect slave treatment patterns. Winter months bring reduced food rations because masters calculate minimum nutrition needed for survival rather than comfort. Summer raiding seasons create opportunities for advancement. Slave children who prove useful during expeditions might earn small privileges or even theoretical paths to freedom. Religious conversion offers no protection. Christian slaves receive the same treatment as pagans because their legal status remains unchanged regardless of baptism. Some masters even prefer Christian slaves because they're considered more trustworthy and less likely to attempt violent revenge against their captors. The resale market operates year-round with predictable price cycles. Spring brings peak demand as Viking crews outfit for summer raiding seasons. Fall markets see prices drop as winter approaches and transportation becomes difficult. Smart traders time their purchases to maximize profits from seasonal fluctuations. Regional specializations emerge within the slave trade networks. Irish children become preferred for their perceived docility and adaptation skills. Saxon children command premiums for their supposed intelligence and craft abilities. Pictish children from Scotland get marketed as particularly hardy and suitable for harsh climate work. Documentation methods include detailed inventory systems. Major slave traders maintain written records of their human property using standardized notation systems. These records track purchase dates, prices paid, training investments, and eventual sale details. Some surviving fragments show profit margins exceeding 300% on successful transactions. Quality control measures ensure customer satisfaction. Reputable slave dealers offer limited warranties on their human merchandise. Children who die within 30 days of sale might be replaced at half price. Those who prove unsuitable for specified tasks could be exchanged for different slaves of equivalent value. The transportation infrastructure develops sophisticated logistics. Regular shipping routes connect major slave markets with predictable schedules. Professional slave ship captains specialize in human cargo transportation, developing expertise in keeping children alive during long voyages. These specialists command premium fees for their services. Insurance systems protect investments during transport. Slave traders often form partnerships to spread risk across multiple shipments. If one vessel sinks or gets captured, surviving partners absorb the losses rather than facing complete financial ruin. This risk sharing enables larger operations than individual traders could manage alone. Banking networks facilitate long-distance transactions. Major trading centers develop credit systems allowing slave purchases without immediate silver payment. Trusted dealers receive advance payments for future deliveries. These financial innovations accelerate trade expansion and increase market efficiency. Legal frameworks evolve to support the industry. Courts develop procedures for resolving slave ownership disputes. Laws specify punishments for slave theft and establish procedures for recovering escaped human property. These legal protections encourage investment in slave trading by reducing business risks. Child mortality rates in slavery reach staggering levels. Archaeological evidence from Scandinavian settlements shows that fewer than half of enslaved children survive their first 2 years of bondage. malnutrition, overwork, and deliberate neglect create death rates 3 times higher than free children in the same communities. Masters calculate these losses into their business models. Psychological manipulation becomes refined science. Vikings discover that traumatized children comply more readily than defiant ones. Separation from family creates dependency on masters for basic survival needs. Some children develop Stockholm Syndrome, defending their captors and helping capture other children during raids. These psychologically broken slaves often become the most trusted household workers. Escape attempts follow predictable patterns. Most occur within the first 6 months of capture, before psychological conditioning takes full effect. Children typically flee during winter months, when shorter daylight hours provide more darkness for travel. Success rates remain extremely low because escaped slaves lack knowledge of local terrain, and language barriers prevent them from seeking help. Punishment escalation follows systematic protocols. First offense brings reduced food rations for 3 days. Second attempt results in public beating witnessed by other slaves as deterrent. Third escape effort typically ends in permanent maiming, severed tendons, removed fingers, or facial scarring that marks the individual as chronically disobedient. Few children survive to attempt a fourth escape. The auction block rituals reveal calculated dehumanization. Potential buyers examine children like livestock, checking teeth for age estimates, testing muscle strength, and evaluating overall health. Children must remain silent during inspection or face immediate punishment. Buyers often negotiate prices while discussing the child's body and capabilities, as if the individual cannot understand their words. Specialized slave ships develop distinct architectural features. Archaeological remains show vessels with reinforced cargo holds, additional drainage systems, and modified ventilation designed specifically for human transport. These ships sacrifice storage space for other goods to maximize slave-carrying capacity during peak trading seasons. Age categories determine market values and treatment protocols. Children under 7 cost less but require more care during transport. Those between 8 and 12 represent optimal investments, old enough for immediate labor but young enough for psychological conditioning. Teenagers command premium prices but pose greater escape and rebellion risks. Gender differences create distinct market segments. Boys get valued primarily for physical labor potential, mining, farming, construction, and military service. Girls face additional exploitation through forced reproduction and sexual slavery. Female children often bring higher prices because they provide multiple forms of value to purchasers. The integration process varies by destination. Household slaves in Scandinavia might achieve quasi-family status after years of faithful service. Agricultural slaves face perpetual bondage with no advancement opportunities. Urban slaves in trading centers occasionally earn freedom through specialized skills or exceptional loyalty to masters. Dietary restrictions maintain slave dependency. Masters provide barely adequate nutrition calculated to preserve work capacity without promoting physical strength that might enable escape or rebellion. Archaeological analysis of slave latrine sites shows diets consisting primarily of grain porridge, vegetable scraps, and occasional fish bones. Clothing and shelter reflect slave status. Bonded children receive minimal garments designed for function rather than warmth or comfort. Housing typically consists of barn spaces, underground chambers, or lean-to structures attached to main buildings. These accommodations offer protection from weather, but reinforce social hierarchy through deliberate discomfort. Work assignment systems maximize economic returns. Masters analyze each child's natural abilities and assign tasks accordingly. Those showing mathematical aptitude might help with trade calculations. Children with steady hands learn textile production. Physical strength determines assignment to farming, construction, or heavy labor roles. The manumission process rarely benefits child slaves. Freedom typically comes only through master's death, exceptional service during emergencies, or purchase by relatives, situations beyond most children's control. Even freed slaves often remain economically dependent on former masters due to lack of property, skills, or social connections. Regional variations create distinct slave cultures. Irish children in Iceland often maintain Celtic language and customs within slave communities. Saxon children in Norway might preserve English traditions through oral storytelling. These cultural retentions provide psychological comfort, but also mark individuals as foreign and potentially dangerous. Disease management focuses entirely on epidemic prevention rather than individual treatment. Masters isolate sick slaves to prevent contagion, but provide minimal medical care. Children who contract serious illnesses often get abandoned or killed rather than treated, since replacement costs less than extended medical expenses. The breeding programs expand beyond simple reproduction. Masters arrange partnerships based on desired traits, strength, intelligence, appearance by or specialized skills. Children born from these forced unions inherit their parents' slave status, but might receive slightly better treatment if they show valuable characteristics. Communication networks among slaves develop sophisticated codes. Children create secret languages mixing their native tongues with Norse vocabulary. Hand signals and behavioral cues allow information sharing without master detection. These networks help coordinate survival strategies and occasionally facilitate group escape attempts. Seasonal labor patterns affect treatment cycles. Spring planting seasons bring increased food rations to ensure adequate strength for intensive work. Summer raiding periods might offer opportunities for exceptional slaves to join expeditions. Fall harvests demand maximum labor output with reduced recovery time between tasks. The final piece comes from an unexpected source. Construction work in modern Dublin uncovered a medieval waste pit containing hundreds of children's bones. Carbon dating shows these burials cluster around 950 to 1000. Peak Viking slave trade period. The bones show signs of malnutrition, heavy labor, and systematic violence. Among the remains, archaeologists found a single piece of carved wood with runic letters. Translated. It reads simply, "We were taken." The youngest skeleton was 5 years old.